So here is a quick explanation of my first BloC application, which was based on the excellent tutorial from Tensor Programming, using the BloC pattern to build reactive application with streams in Dart's Flutter framework. In his example, he used movie lists, but in my application I use the service layer activities, querying activities. So that was a difference, but otherwise I just simply copy pasted the way he applied, and I learned a couple of interesting things. First of all, so this is the running application in the emulator. I am using a virtual private network to that I connected a service layer activity, and here when first you enter, I press M. Let's check out how long would it take. Normally 5 to 8 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, until the whole service layer was initialized. So you checked out, and then after that the whole application is quite snappy. However, this application is not caching, it's just so fast to query again and again the service layer application. So my experience that the first time when you query, even when I just delete, and we have here all the activities in this application, I don't have so many activities, just anyhow like X or whatever, all the activities which have the contents X. So I'm quite happy that service layer is really responsive after the initialization step. So this was a real-time querying experience. And then let's check out how the code was written. First of all, in the YAML, I have here the my package from B1 simpler mobile warehousing package, which uses also the B1 service layer package. Actually, this is what I used in the application. In the model, that was the first. Here are more or less copied everything which was initialized or requested by the tutorial video, except of course the details of my API. Here is the connection string, connection object, and then initialization of the service layer, and then the actual execution of the activity. Here you can see a very fancy way of executing a number of functions in a series. Here is the query using the filter equal contains and the details. So this is the field I'm querying in this example. So when a query string is an input parameter from the text box where the user enters the data, and every time a new character is entered, this query string, query async is called. Actually, this is a low level function as seen. This is coming from the service layer, and then the first job is to decode the string into a map of strings, and then from the map of string, because this is a query, the first field is named value, which returns a list of actually the activities, and here the list of maps, then for each we iterate over, and then I've already created in my package an activity which I've imported from in this B1 simple mobile warehousing package. I have an activity which maps gets the data from a map, you see, and then this is it. I also wrote my own version, but I love so much better the Tensor solution with this then, because then, as you can see here, the return value of this onValue function is the future OR. So this then works either if this function is a asynchronous function returning a future, or a synchronous function without any future. So this is really a big lesson I learned. So this was the API, again querying the activities based on the details. And then the next step was to define a BloC. This was definitely totally beyond my comprehension. Definitely I understand all the details here. What we have is a activity block which requires a dispose, and it has three streams. One of the stream is actually the activity list. This is what we are returning back to the application. The query stream is actually a string which is coming from the user interface. A log also another stream, but in the application we don't use this log a lot. And then activities block. Yeah, here is the initialization. I don't go into the details of explaining it, because first of all I don't really understand all the intricacies, all the details. Why is this thing async mac as broadcast? Everything is more or less clean, and I clear what they are meant for, but why they are to be done, definitely I wouldn't be able to replicate it, redo it on my own. So that's why you should check Tensor Programming's video to understand all of the details. So when we have this BloC, which is relaying, is actually a mediator between the user interface and our real business logic. It is called business logic components, but honestly I really don't see this anything to do with business logic. In my understanding, the business logic is really shouldn't be located in a stream, in an object like so. So to me this is absolutely and totally a technical gizmo which is used to stream the data between a real business logic components into a user interface component. So in my opinion, this using the business logic in so low level technical components is misleading. So when you have the BloC, then you have the provider. This is regular Flutter again machinery to make this BloC available. Here you go, we have this final activities BloC, and then when it is constructed, the constructor will create this BloC component, and then this activity of the static method makes it available throughout the entire widget chain. And then we have our user interface. And what is interesting, that we are working only with stateless widgets. This is just the application and the home page. I don't go again into the details. What, however, should be important to understand is that the whole material application is sandwiched, is encapsulated into an activities provider. So everywhere in this all of the application, the any component can have access to this BloC component. And here is an example in the build. It's a stateless widget, interesting, stateless widget. This activities BloC is retrieved and then made available, for example, in this text field, activities BloC, query, add, and then here the log. And then here is the activity list, again with the activity list as a stream into the BloC. Okay, so practically that was more or less the application. Let's just link this together with its B1 Tensor BloC. Let's just create repository, new repository, B1 Tensor BloC. Let me just use exactly the same string that I defined. Here, B1 Tensor BloC. Okay, it's important that nothing else. Just create a repository. Okay, copy this. Coming back to Visual Studio, we don't need this application anymore running. And then in the view command palette, git initialize repository, Tensor BloC, sure. Now we have all the files. The next is add remote. Okay, I just use this is a name for this remote, and then this is the actual URL which I copied. Press enter. Okay, now it is linked to the master, and coming to here, fully working version with Eric's Dart. Another important thing that Tensor used Eric's Dart function here. Let me just show you in the model, not in the model, in the BloC. This was the function, yes, this replay subject was used by Eric's Dart. So possibly if I understood Eric start, maybe this whole wouldn't be that cryptic anyhow. So fully working version with Eric start, just commit changes, excellent, and push. Back to our application, and here is the application.